Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are in the world. I hope this finds you well. Pull up a chair, grab a drink, grab a snack, get comfortable. Of course, none of this is financial advice. I'm not an investment advisor, only offering my personal views and opinions to help sharpen our collective edge on the markets as we navigate the icy slopes ahead of us. Today, I'm going to offer my views on the charts. We just got some very volatile price action the last few days. We're going to look at Bitcoin. We're going to look at Kaspa. We're going to look at the total altcoin market and kind of try to make sense of this price action, this extreme volatility we've seen with this news of the Israel and Iran tension the last few days, which seemed to have an impact on the markets. Most prevalently seen in the altcoin market, Bitcoin has been pretty, not much has actually happened. So I'm surprised to see how up in arms everybody is as far as the price action goes. I think it's mainly because the altcoin market more so than Bitcoin. So if we look at total 3, for example, we can see that it's had a really quite a sharp, steep pullback here. Last cycle when total 3 was at the 0.5 retracement level, it didn't really do what it's doing right now. It had this, in this cycle, it's had this much longer sideways range and then this boom, steep correction. Back here, it almost looks more like the 382 to the 236 last cycle, as far as the timing goes, time spent going sideways before a really deep correction. Last cycle at the 0.5, it was volatile, but it kind of went through, it seems, quicker. So this time, it almost, if you look at it, it looks like the 382 down to the 236, right? That's kind of how it looks. We also have the others chart, which is everything outside of the top 10. And again, you can see it got up to the 702 and then blasted way down to the 382. Which again didn't really happen last time. I guess it kind of did in here actually if you look at it, but it happened at the 0.5 to the 382. And let me see how it looks if we actually put it on here at the bottom. Not that much of a difference. So similarities and differences. The big pullback is happening from a higher place this time, which makes sense because Bitcoin has never had this like steep COVID drop that we saw last time. It really just kind of blasted through, as you can see, kind of. And I've pointed this out. I kind of held that this area in here was pretty good level actually to be optimistic on the markets because of, if you looked at the moving averages, the 20 and 21 week SMA and EMA, the bull market support band, we were below that level. And unless we got a black swan like this, the COVID drop, I didn't see that we were going to come down super low. So to me, it just looked like essentially this level right here, which is what we got, and then it blasted up. So that all looked pretty good. So let me delete these. We don't really need these moving averages at the moment. But one thing I wanted to talk about before I go into more Bitcoin charts, another Kaspa chart. I've got some cool things here to talk about, and then I've also got some interesting patterns to look at on Kaspa as well. So let's start with Bitcoin. And I know people like Elliot waves, and they're not my main thing that I use, but they are interesting for sure. I more prefer like Fibonacci and moving averages, but this is actually pretty interesting to take a look at. And I know I get a lot of questions about Elliott waves, so we could take a look at that, and we can kind of try to find some confluence here between um, some Fibonacci targets to the upside and some Elliott waves. So, I mean, what I see, if we draw Fibonacci up, from the last cycle and see where Bitcoin reached, which was essentially the 3.618, we can also come in here, look at the 3.618 and see where that reaches. And then we can draw some Elliott waves, on a high time frame. And, we got this this test of the 20 and 21 week SMA here. We got this test here, right, on the 2. And right now we're getting some volatility in here, right, at the all-time high. And then if this holds, and both examples were above the 20 and 21 week SMA and EMA, right? Then we could potentially come up to the 3. If we repeat, again, this is all purely speculation and really nothing to take to the bank because anything can happen. Always have to interject that we could have a triple peak right here. I could say we could have a triple peak and it could come down. It could at the very least test the 20 and 21 week SMA. And even worse, it could fall below it and then back test it and come down. And then we'd have to look at some lower moving averages, right? Kind of like these ones right here, which I've marked out and I use personally to find levels, in a bear market to buy at. But again, we don't need to look at those right now. So if that doesn't happen and we continue to the upside, what would it look like if we just mirrored the last cycle? The 2.618 is, last cycle was at 45K. This time the 2.618 is at 153. So 3 to the 4 to the 5, 3 to the 4 to the 5 right here. So we would essentially go 153K, 100K, ultimately up to 200K. Again, purely speculation. I don't know if it's going to do that, but on a high time frame, if we just repeated that, you can see that, that's the pattern. But how often do patterns repeat exactly? Not always. They're similar but different. You can see that this last time we had this black swan with COVID, and that this time we did not. But we are kind of moving similarly otherwise, so that is interesting. So, and as far as like a more localized price action goes, you can see that this is interesting. So I mentioned a while ago that Bitcoin bottoming at 61K sounds fair. I just saw this like descending channel. And if we look at it, we zoom in on this price action, you can see on the 4-hour chart, let's do that. Where did it end up bottoming at? Let's get the magnet on here, find the exact price. It bottomed at 60,794, which is in fact pretty close to 61K. Essentially we got 61K. And since then, Bitcoin has been pretty much in a range. It's been going more or less sideways. We could also, again, draw a channel and see what that looks like. And sorry, that is my dog at the door. One sec. Okay, And so we got this channel here. And one thing to notice, that I'm noticing at least, is that we didn't hit this. And so if we get this test down here, that wouldn't surprise me, although, we don't necessarily need to get it. So that's one thing that I noticed. We didn't actually get that test down there. So we'll see if that happens. But right now, price is starting to rally already. Could be news that maybe tensions have diminished between Iran and Israel. I'm not watching that right now as I'm recording this, but maybe that's what's going on. So that's interesting. So also to go to potential like cycle peaks before we go into Kaspa. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. Apologize for that. We have some time frames to look at, and this again, if you've seen this before, this will be a repetition, but for those who haven't seen it yet, essentially we had 119 days after Bitcoin eventually broke out, put in its first peak last cycle. Similar time frame, this cycle would put it this summer, sometime July, August potentially. If we go by the halving, it would be next year. So there's that. And again, always interjecting the bear case. If we do a triple peak, we just need to be mindful that Bitcoin's never done that before, and that makes that idea all the more interesting to me. So if it came down and again it started, hitting this, that could be bullish if it just retests this, and then boom, that's a good level to buy at, in my opinion, maybe. But if it breaks through, starts back testing it, boom, it's going down. And then we look at these moving averages here, and of course I will share my thoughts if that happens. Hopefully it doesn't. But if we continue this bullish momentum, which is more my personal bias that things do remain bullish, then yeah, we'll see. It could be either of these two or something totally different. These are just total speculation. And then as far as time goes on the Kaspa chart, let's see. So then, yeah, this is interesting. So Kaspa in the 4 cent range actually had quite a long accumulation period. Basically went sideways for over 200 days before it eventually broke out. And anyone who was in at 4 cents or as low as 1 cent, if you were back paying attention to Kaspa back then, you made out pretty well, because Kaspa ended up going to, up to like 18 cents, right? From 1 cent, that's pretty awesome. Even from 4 cents, that's pretty awesome. And sorry, my dog. So yeah, I mean, so Kaspa, you can see, got to the top of its Fibonacci extension, and it went even a little higher. So that's nice. So if we look at it here, and we kind of mark out similar levels, we're looking at, depends on how you draw it, but we're looking at potentially above 30 cents. If you draw it on this one, in this range, we're looking at above 40 cents. And then just psychologically, people are going to be thinking about 50 cents, So sometimes things overshoot. By the way, I'm going to talk about these patterns in a little bit too. Sometimes things overshoot. So these patterns I wanted to mention as well. We have We have this descending channel currently, and this has happened from time to time. This is definitely not a very clear cup and handle, but I marked it out just because technical analysis is very much an art. It is not completely a science. You can kind of extrapolate and kind of draw loose connections and patterns between things, and you can kind of see similarities, even if it's not cut and dry. And I think a very rigid mindset gets people into trouble. So sometimes when I post charts, people are like, "Oh, that's invalidated. Oh, that's not really how that works." Yeah, well, there's no completely fixed rule book. There's guidelines. I would say there's guides, but there's no fixed rule book, right? So you have to kind of extrapolate and draw these loose connections because the markets are very fluid. So you have to look at it in a fluid way. So, I mean, you can look at this current pattern on Kaspa and see that there is this descending channel that actually very clean touch of the bottom of it. And that is actually where we put in this low. So this low at just above 10 cents came in on this channel. It's also in this liquidity zone, which is also a positive sign. It's kind of come down and tested that. Kaspa has done that many times in the past. You can see it kind of dips in and it gets some liquidity, and then it goes up again. So as the market cap increases, there's less volatility here. That makes sense. And this pullback has been not as steep as prior corrections. You can see this one, for example, right here was basically like just under 40%. This one so far here has been about 44%. If we go back and we look at this correction, this was very, very big, very steep. The market cap was a lot lower back then. That was 70%. This was 57%. And you can also see, yeah, it's had these channels from time to time. So like right here, we got this cup and handle and this descending channel, and it broke out and it got above it. It did another channel, broke out, got above it, moved up. And right now, what do we have? We have a descending channel, and we're at the bottom. We hit the bottom. We've come up. We're at the midline. If we get above, this is just speculation, but doing something similar to what the past ones have looked like. Once we get above it and we hit it right there, then and we break out and hold that as support, that could offer the momentum for another move up. And that to me kind of looks similar to this sort of price action. So if you noticed this descending channel here, and you had the opportunity to buy down here, that was probably a good level in hindsight. After things play out, we might see that as a good level, assuming once again that Bitcoin remains bullish and doesn't come down and fall below these moving averages, and then we have to look down here. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So it's good to keep that in mind, just in case. You don't want to be overinvested, obviously. And so that's what I'm hoping for. I'm personally hoping. Obviously, I'm invested in Kaspa, and yeah, the altcoin market has gotten pretty much it nuked pretty hard the past few days. The others chart showing everything outside of the top 10 essentially has come down. It looks like a kind of like a back test of this 382 level. We got a back test right here. which I mentioned in the ski bum trading Discord. You can, if you're interested in joining that, you can check that out in my bio of the Twitter via the Patreon link. I'll also drop it in the description of this YouTube video in the comments. So we got another back test here on the total 3 chart, and it basically blasted off after that. So yeah, it looked like we could have a higher move after this. So that was optimistic. Now on the others chart, we're getting potentially what could be a back test before, something similar where it breaks out. We got this back test here, boom, off to the races. So if this is a back test right here before a move higher, that's one case for the bulls right there. So potentially this pullback was just a not necessary market cleanse to kind of get rid of leverage in the system before the next phase of the cycle can occur and things can move higher. So that is something that I am watching, and we'll see how this plays out. And of course, just to wrap things up, the timing is always hard to figure out. Levels are generally easier, so we can only speculate on the timing, and eventually, Bitcoin might make it to the top of this range, and that would be, for me, I can't see Bitcoin going above really 200 or 240K. For me, that would be potential cycle peak if we got there. But of course, because we also have to consider the downside risk. If Bitcoin falls below 50K right now and starts back testing the 50K level, that would be not so great news. So that is what I'm hoping actually does not happen. So if you like this content and you want to stay posted, feel free to subscribe, click the bell icon to get notified when I put up new videos, and drop any comments below, any thoughts you might have on this. And otherwise, be well, take care, keep that edge sharp, navigating the icy slopes of the markets, and let's sharpen our collective edge together. Take care.